I have to.
Oof, I almost blurted out something.
Don't, no F-bombs allowed.
Didn't say it was going to be one of those, Jules. Easy now.
That's my thing. That's what I do. All right. Hi, everybody on Facebook. Hey, Gabe. Hey, Amanda. We are here on Labor Day. No vacations for us. We got to come and give everybody good book recommendations for their week of reading. So probably be quick today. Gabe, I think I put it on so you can screen share, so you're good to go.
Yes.
So Amanda, since you're up first today, you're gonna go first for our, unless Gabe, why? Hey, rock paper scissors on you guys. If you
We're good. She was in first. I'll back clean up. I'll pick up the mess at the back end.
Well, that's a ooh. I think I might need to edit that out of the recording.
It's a rough crowd. It's a rough group here. Amanda.
It's like ready to turn off her camera.
I meant that in the best possible way.
Oh my God, that was so good, Gabe. That's why I love you. All right. We have a few viewers with us now. We've got it on the recording so people can join us a little bit later if they missed anything. So Amanda, start us off.
Okay. This is a book that comes out on September 21st, but I just started it and I am very entertained. This is True Raiders, the untold story of the 1909 expedition to find the legendary Ark of the Covenant. And it's by Ritter, who is also the author of a book that Nancy Warwick loved called Olive the Lionheart.
Oh.
A Lost Love, Imperial Spies, and One Woman's Journey into the Heart of Africa. So he's kind of got a market on the adventure narratives, but this is a true story. It's being described as the story of the lost city of Z meets the Da Vinci Code. And it tells the story.
But it's nonfiction, right?
It's not, it's a true story, nonfiction. Okay. And it tells the story of Monty Parker, who was a British nobleman who he was dared to find the Ark of the Covenant by Ava Astor, the so-called most beautiful woman in the world. And so it's basically a real life version of the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it's an adventure story. So if you're a Lost City of Z person who needs a good nonfiction adventure read, I would say you should pick this up. Excellent. It comes out on September 21st. And the director of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the adaptation, says, so I haven't seen the adaptation, but they say, grounded in historical accuracy, this marvelous story of the true raider of the Ark of the Covenant is fascinating, vivid, and suggestive as gold lit by torchlight. It's really well written. It reads like a thriller.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you about how it's written. So it's like it's paced like a thriller, sort of.
Yeah, and it's very visual. And the author is actually an Edgar-nominated mystery writer too. So they're kind of bringing together the style of fiction with this narrative. So that's True Raiders. You can pre-order it now. It comes out on the 21st of the month.
Perfect. Sounds really good. I'm sure
Must
we've got
have
Raiders.
it, sounds like.
I know. All right, Gabe, you're up.
It'll go nicely next to my Viking book that I just got the other day.
Oh.
What is it?
Book on the Vikings. A big, fat, basic books, history on the Vikings.
Cool.
So excited. My wife picked it up for me.
Deep dive into the Vikings. I love it.
It's nice to have your own personal bookseller in the house.
Don't even ask for stuff and it shows up.
I love it.
I don't have to ask. So I'm going to share with you, I was going to take the day off because it is a holiday, but I have books releasing that are really good books that I'm always excited to talk about. And I could not talk about Emily Itami's new book, first novel, Fault Lines, called Brilliant by Booklist. Margot Livesey, one of my favorite authors. I love Margot Livesey. gives it a great blurb as well. Margot is really one of those writers, and this book is really unique in a lot of different ways. Initial premise is like any one of those Untitled that you've probably read, where the wife leaves the marriage and goes off and tries to find herself. This is not quite that, but it is a young woman in Tokyo, Mizuki, who has it all. You know, she's got the salaryman husband, she's got 2 adorable children, she's got the bomb apartment in Tokyo. You know, what could she possibly want? But there are days where she just wants to, like, you know, if I got to listen to my husband and my stupid kids for like one more day, I'm going to jump off this building. So there's a lot of real life stuff in here. Who hasn't felt like that? But, you know, in that world, she meets a sexy restaurateur, Kiyoshi, who is all that and a bag of chips. And she starts a relationship with him and steps out of the marriage for a second and has a relationship with Kiyoshi, who again is that life, you know, all of a sudden she's out at night, she's just rediscovering Tokyo. And honestly, the cover on this book, you see Tokyo in the background. It's a really great, I still want to go to Tokyo after reading this book. It really, maybe cliche to say where the city or the location becomes the character. But there's a lot of Tokyo here, and you really just want to immerse. It's like she puts you in places that I'd never been because I haven't read a lot, I guess, enough. But just a great look at Tokyo itself. So she's experiencing this great, amazing city that she lives in. But she starts taking stock of her life, and then she's got to make a decision. She can't be living in 2 worlds, and she's got decisions to make. And it is one of those books that is always, you know, these domestic stories, these domestic novels tend to run into the bummer mode always, you know, and this book doesn't really take you into that bummer mode. And it's like, oh, the end of a marriage or something. It kind of stays upbeat, and her eyes are open and she's coming into her own. Emily's a brilliant writer. She's really funny. The book is provocative. It's, like I said, it's really startlingly honest, and it's like looking in a mirror. I would think a lot of people would, I'm not a Japanese woman, but you definitely, she hits all these universals really right on, it's that nail right on the head. So it's a bittersweet love story is the way I like to describe it. So a lot of fun, lovely read. And I don't think it's necessarily a woman's audience. I think anybody who likes an Ann Tyler or Sally, they're using Sally Rooney a lot. I haven't read Sally Rooney, so I don't know. But I really, really enjoyed Fault Lines. And I just think that Mizuki is such a great character, and she really drives the story. And I'm excited. Like I said, I had to jump in today and share a couple of books with you. And that's what I've been wanting to. So
I love it.
Out tomorrow.
My favorite line of yours, I'm not a Japanese woman. That could be my favorite thing you've ever said.
It's it's a true statement. English as a foreign language thing. I am not a cat,
I am not a cat. No, that sounds really good. And I love Margot, who wrote The Boy in the Field. So her blurb is like spot on that one.
Yeah,
so.
I think she's right on it.
Yeah.
What a pretty cover too.
I know, the cover
great
is
cover.
Great. Yeah, really good cover. And I like the fact, like you said, it's like it doesn't have the downer. I mean, anytime a marriage is breaking up and you're somebody's having an affair, it's kind of like a thing, but it's just like, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's just like all doom and gloom.
Yeah, and it doesn't go like that far. She doesn't go that far into the relationship, but she is definitely living 2 lives that she's got to, but it's great watching her figure it out. What do I want out? I can finally, a lot of people, life sort of carries you along, and you don't take time to create yourself, and you don't think about it. You're like, gotta go to college, gotta get my house.
Right. You just kind of do these things, and it's like, oh, this is the next thing without really thinking about it too much. Yeah. Interesting. Looks like a good one. Okay, wait. I'm not sharing our own screen here. This is what I'm going to talk about. It's Labor Day. Let's talk about, and I know, Gabe, you love Joyce Maynard. I love Joyce Maynard. This is not a new book by any stretch of the imagination. I want to say it's 2009 Indie Next List, so it's an old title. In fact, I think you're gonna have to order it because we don't have it in the store anymore, but we can still get it to you pretty quickly. But it's a great book about Labor Day and about what happens over a Labor Day weekend, and about the relationships with people that it's like somebody who you don't necessarily think you should relate to, you can relate to. And I just loved this book, and I still obviously am recommending it. So if you haven't read Labor Day by Joyce Maynard, pick that one up. It's a good, I think it's one of her best, actually.
Yeah.
And I like Joyce. I do love a lot of Joyce's books, but I think this is one of her best. So pick up Labor Day. I'm going theme this week.
She's a friend of Warwick's. She's at Warwick's. Has been until the pandemic. Every book she's been at Warwick's for a long time. And you guys do real well with Joyce. And
I love the way she tells the story. She's a really, really good storyteller. And this was one of those books that you pick up. It's and you just blow, but you blow through, but it's really good. It's got a great pace. It's just got good pacing, great characters. So Labor Day, Joyce Maynard. Amanda, off to you.
I apologize. This one is a month out, but I just finished it, and I just love this. So,
gotta talk about it.
I'm a really huge Star Trek The Next Generation nerd, like huge. So when I saw this was a thing, I had to read it. This is fan fiction, a memoir inspired by true events from Brent Spiner, who plays Data, not Data, on Star Trek The Next Generation. It comes out on October 5th, and it is fiction, but set in 1991, just as The Next Generation has become a huge global phenomenon. The young actor Brent Spiner receives a mysterious, terrifying package in his as fan mail in his trailer, and so he embarks on this very scary and bizarre journey trying to figure out who this person is who's sending him these crazy letters and packages. And all the characters are here. There's Patrick Stewart, there's LeVar Burton, there's Gene Roddenberry, there are all sorts of actors from movies and Hollywood, and it's not great literature, but it is so interesting. You're getting these, even though it's fiction, you're getting these glimpses of how life was at this time for him and for the cast, and behind the scenes kind of stuff. And then it's this really clever kind of throwback to noir fiction with the femme fatales and this intrigue and kind of Hollywood, smoky Hollywood glamour. And there is actually a blurb on the front from Michael Chabon, the Pulitzer Prize winner. He says, "A gripping plot, deftly and delightfully twisted." So maybe I shouldn't say it's not great literature.
I know.
It's so easy to read.
Yeah, but and that sometimes is harder to do.
And it's super clever, just the whole device, the way it's framed. So, but if there's anyone in your life who is a Star Trek The Next Generation person, you really should get this for them. It's, again, it comes out on October 5th. It's fan fiction from Brent Spiner.
Love it.
Also, I would follow his Twitter because he's awesome.
Yeah. That sometimes is the most fun. I love following authors. I mean, because I do the Warwick's Twitter account, so I'm following some people, because Twitter can be a cesspool, but the author stuff is like pretty amazing what they do.
There's some clever people that figured out the Twitter. I can't quite figure. I'm not clever enough for Twitter, but there's some really people that I follow. When
you recognize when it's good. You know what I mean? It's just like, I can't create it either, but it's like you recognize it when it's good.
Yeah, you just start following people because it's like, they inform or they crack you up.
Oh yeah, no, I'm constantly. I mean, then there's stuff that you go down some rabbit holes, or it's just like, ugh. But Amanda, I mean, sometimes it's like not great literature, but it's like something fun to read, and sometimes the stuff that's easy and fun is just as hard to write as the highbrow literature kind of thing.
Yeah, it's deceptively super easy to read, and very visual, and reads like you're reading his memoirs, but but yeah, I think maybe I'm not. I might actually go back and reread it to fully appreciate the way, because it's, it's life within fiction, life, and just the very nature of acting, and there's a lot going on.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, Gabe,
Love
what's
it.
your next one for us?
I love that fiction memoir blending thing people are doing these days. It kind of
Mhm.
trips. Some people are good at it. Other people
Yeah.
are just writing a
Memoir. Oh, did we lose Gabe? Gabe, can you hear us?
Yay.
Uh-oh.
formatting creation.
Oh, there
that
you
we
are.
did there, so I'm curious.
You were
The
freezing
best
on
Star
us for a
Trek.
minute.
Yeah, my internet connection.
Okay.
But I love The Next Generation. It's the best Star Trek. Picard's the best captain.
Yes.
They're so much smarter. I mean, I think the one requirement for the original Star Trek was you had to be a bad actor. And they started there. But The Next Generation is the plots are
But
like,
they were so great how bad they were. Come on.
they were just,
They were
the
so
Next Generation
good.
doesn't have any of that mess. It's just the plots are like, whoa, and then when I first saw the board the first time, I was like, whoa. Anyway, love it. My next book is another book I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. And it is the great, glorious goddamn of it all. The second novel by Josh Ritter, singer, songwriter, wrote a novel like 10 years ago. They got some really small press, but got some really good literary attention.
Mhm.
This book, I posted the Library Journal starred review, the book list starred review, and these are the early trades the people look at, and the people that are very critical of what they read because they read a lot, and they decided to star it, which is kind of a big deal. This is just one of those wonderful get lost in Americana, Paul Bunyan, great American legend, Western epic in a reasonable amount of pages. The language is just, he creates this voice that narrates the novel, and it's very, regional and dated. When I started reading it, I'm like, do I like it, or is it over the top? And then as I read it, it's like, oh, it fits perfect. It's exactly, like I said, it's a very Americana voice, and he just sucks you into this world of lumberjacks in Cordelia, Idaho. And it's sort of the end of the Wild West era there, and lumberjacking is starting to change a little bit. And there's this one, the lumberjack, that's the measure of all lumberjacks, this legend that runs through the narrative as well. But the voice is so great, and you just find yourself laughing, turning the pages. You are, honest to God, it was like sometimes I felt like I was 9, 8 years old reading Pecos Bill and Paul Bunyan kids books that I checked out of the library, because that's where he put me into this sort of great Americana before I knew what went on. But it was just, the dream and all this. It's just great storytelling. It's really storytelling at its best, with a really amazing voice that narrates the novel and pushes it along. So like I said, it's really, what does somebody say here? Book list, which I posted down here. The language of Ritter's characters is poetic, born of generations of storytelling, myth, and tradition. A story at once heart-wrenching, life-affirming, and tear-inducing that still somehow offers the most loathsome villains this side of Cormac McCarthy. So it's really this outlandish Wild West, great epic fat novel that you're gonna love. It's just a joy to read, and this is why I read, stuff like this.
Right. Josh Ritter, talk to me a little bit more about Josh Ritter. He's a singer-songwriter?
Singer-songwriter. He's had a nice career. He's a good storyteller. He knows how to tell a story in 2.5 minutes, which I think helps. I think a songwriting and storytelling, obviously, hand in hand. He's one of John Ritter's sons.
Okay, he is. Okay, because I wasn't sure if he was okay. He's not the actor one, though.
Right. There's 2 of them, I think.
Right.
And I think they both start with a J, but
yeah,
and I think he might have done something early on, maybe some show or some appearances, but otherwise he's been, his career has been singer-songwriter. Gets, again, really strong reviews on his songwriting. and
Love
his
it.
music. So that's what he does. And it's a little like Willie Vlouten, but
Okay.
way more upbeat than Willie.
Okay. Yeah, Willie can be a little dark. Okay. All right. That's okay. Cool. All right. Let's see. But Willie, but the darkness of Willie though, I love because he can write a really good story. Okay, where was I? Hold on. Okay, this is my next one. I told you I'm on a theme this week. So Labor Day was the first one. So now I'm going to talk to you about, we're going to commemorate the 20th anniversary of 9/11 on Saturday. If you are so inclined that you would like to go back and listen to the oral history of what happened that day, the only plane in the sky, I put the Libro.fm note on this, or tag, or whatever you want to call it, the link to this, because they actually have some of the audio that they play that they've released from that day, from some of the flight attendants, from the air traffic control. One of the most poignant things that they talk about in this is when, from the satellite up in it wasn't the satellite, but what is it, the space station that goes around the Earth. And so, it circulates every, I don't know how many minutes or hours or whatever, but at one point when they had grounded all the planes and the space station was going over and the astronauts were looking out, there was only one plane in the sky, and it was Air Force One going back to Washington, D.C. And so it was really, it's just this visceral, it's a great, it's a great book to read too, if you want to read it, but hearing the accounts and hearing things live is amazing. So it's a great way to commemorate what happened 20 years ago and kind of get an inside look at what that day was like. So The Only Plane in the Sky, an oral history of 9/11. It's very good. So there we go. All right, we got a lightning round from you, Amanda.
Yes. I'm trying to decide if I want to go, since I did 2 pre-orders, maybe I should do one more, or if I should go real far back in history.
Whatever rocks your boat there, lady.
Okay. Well, okay, I'm going to go way back. This is not a book that needs anyone's help to sell, but I did want to mention that given the news and everything, I have Banned Books Week on my mind. So Banned Books Week is coming. It's the last week of September, and it's a week in which the American Library Association, sort of in partnership with American booksellers, celebrates books that have been challenged and or banned in schools and libraries throughout history, very recently sometimes. And so one of the books that is always mentioned is Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. This is one of my absolute favorite books ever. And it takes place in a near future in which books have been outlawed, and one of the people who is in charge of seeking them out and getting rid of them, he's a fireman, that's what they call them, sort of starts rethinking the wisdom of books being suppressed. And sorry, I'm kind of going on. It's not really a lightning round, but this book was challenged, for example, in Texas for its discussions of being drunk, smoking cigarettes, violence, dirty talk, references to the Bible, and using God's name in vain. And it, of course, this is a book about burning and suppressing books, so it's always kind of ironical to talk about. But anyway, so our friend Alice Hoffman says of Fahrenheit 451, it is a masterpiece, a glorious American classic everyone should read. It's life-changing if you read it as a teen, and still stunning when you reread it as an adult. So that's Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. You'll see a different cover when I put it in the comments. This is
Yeah, they
one of my
change the
old-
cover, I think, about every
This is
10
one of my
years, don't they?
old beloveds. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
we're due for another a cool reissue. I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
they reissue and rechange that cover quite a bit, but yeah, well worth the reread. Sort of like Handmaid's Tale. You need to read that one too. So
Yeah.
there you go. All right, Gabe, lightning round.
Did you say lightning round? So I'm gonna lightning it up with something
Lighten
from
up.
Scandinavia. Jan Kalman Stephenson is Iceland's Dickens. He's Iceland's Twain. He's Iceland's Hemingway. You don't mess around.
Wow.
Obviously, he is like all that. A lot of he's one of those people who's on the is maybe not on the short list, but has been on a few long lists when it comes to Nobel Literary Prize consideration. I almost said Oscar because I'm too much time in that line. So he's an author of with a huge international reputation who a lot of people in the United States have never heard of. So this is our Harper Via imprint, and Harper Via is our imprint that does these really great books in translation. I'm a big fan of the Europa imprints that Andrea sells, and she talks about a lot of Europa books, and they've got some really good international writers. And our imprint Via, I think, just is rivaling them in bringing some really, really good fiction from around the world, India, Iceland. I mean, you name it. We're bringing books from all over the world here, Africa, South America, Europe, all over the place. So we've got this huge world to draw from. And, I was thinking when you were talking about Orwell, there's a lot of people who haven't read these old backlist books. It's just, there's these amazing, I have a book that I sold a zillion years ago that no one even knows, The Further Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by a guy whose last name Matthews, that I loved, and I would put that book in everybody's hands if it was still in print. So we don't see a lot of stuff because as time passes, these books get relegated. So I really love this imprint because it's really bringing these great fiction. We have another Lastin Veronese coming in the winter of next year, The Hummingbird, which is another amazing book. He wrote a previous book for us years ago that got really well reviewed. So it's really just culturally exciting literary experience that we're bringing. And this is one of those books that is a major literary work. Stephenson is earned a dedicated following of readers around the world. These are it's a novel told in stories. So there's and we list it as a novel, but every narrative, every story, is its own story and also part of the whole. And it's really cool because what he's talking about is normal people, their insecurities, their anxieties, the courage that it takes to get through life, and all these episodes that create one coherent whole. So it's like the same thing that happens with people is what he's doing here. And he's a brilliant writer. You're going to get lost in this book. It's going to make you think. It's a very existential book, I think. It really looks at people at cusps, different places in their lives. And it's the village. So it's the village that tells the story. It's all these various voices that tell the story. It's a village of 400 people in West Iceland. And the people tell the story of the village and the universals that exist in this world. And so these various episodes create one coherent whole as a community does. So I just thought it was a really brilliant book, worth reading. And I'm really excited that I have a chance to talk about it. All three books I talked about today go on sale tomorrow. And it's all really, really good stuff.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, I love the translations and I love reading books that are translated versus somebody that's an American that's writing about an international story. I mean, I like that too, but there's something about hearing the voices directly. It gives you that just whole different perspective. I mean, we get nothing wrong with American stories and all that, but sometimes you got to see what the rest of the world is doing from their eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, I'm seeing it in like we're watching a lot of, we're streaming a lot. Everybody's streaming a lot,
Right.
and there's all this great stuff coming out of everywhere because
Right.
the HBO format, that short European series format is just right for quick adaptations. We're watching stuff from India, China, Japan, Iceland, a couple of Icelandic shows, Norway, everywhere. Mexico, and it's up the ante. Mexican TV. I grew up watching novelas with my mama, and that's what she'd watch. First generation, we'd watch. That's what she watched, and Latin American TV was not terribly sophisticated, and all of a sudden Mexico is pulling up some really good shows right now.
Right, they're stepping it up.
Movies and shows and streaming stuff. So it's happening. I think we're absorbing stuff from all these cultures, and I think books been doing it forever.
Right.
It's just tough to sell a book in translation sometimes because
I know, but it all has to do with the translator too. I mean, I'll have to say, it's because some of the translations are good, but you have in VIA, somebody that's curating really good translations. So that's a thing that it's kind of like Europa. That
exactly.
It's a good translation.
In reading translation, I can read in Spanish, but I can't read I have no idea. When I read a Milan Kundera who's Czech and he writes in French, and then it's translated into English, and Spanish is my original language, but I speak English.
How many iterations is it going through in your brain?
Yeah, so you're always like, is this any good, or is this just a really good translator who's upping the ante, or is the translator bringing the translation on? Are they feeling the?
And that's a good point too. It's like, did the translator make it better?
Does he get it? But but when you read a good translation, you tend to feel it, I think.
Yeah. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about is obviously events. So here we go. This week is like every other week. We've got some great events for you. Andrea Owen will be here tomorrow with Make Some Noise. And she's going to be in conversation with, I can't remember, Amy E. Smith. So we've got that. And then on Wednesday, Tammy at the store really liked this book, and it's been one I wanted to get to it before we hosted her tomorrow, but I don't know if I'm going to get. I'll get a little bit of it read, but I can't remember who's the pub on this one. This is I can't remember. Do you remember, Amanda? I don't know. Anyways, but beneficent. I can't say it, but anyways.
Sorry, I got lost. It's David Godine.
Yeah, but who distributes that? Is that a Macmillan?
Andrea.
Andrea, it's an Andrea book. Okay, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Because she, I think, talked about it. So beneficence. I'm really looking forward to this conversation on Wednesday. And then we have for student teachers and teachers, if you want to join us on Thursday, we're doing a panel discussion with some great kids authors transitioning to new normals, how kids books and authors can help. Chris Barron, Matt De La Pena, Virginia Lohagan, Sally Plaw, and Min Lo will be here. So I think that'll be a really good, especially as school's starting back up again. And what does the new normal look like? So as always, look on our webpage, get on our email list. Gabe, thank you for spending Labor Day with us. Amanda. So I'm going to take us off of Facebook and stop the recording. So happy reading, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Until next week.